Welcome back to Fox Sports News. Well, Jeff Horn's devastating first-round knockout against Anthony Mundine saw the Aussie reignite his career in Brisbane last night. But where to now for the former welterweight champion? Boxing commentators Paul Upham and Cody Kaye believe his future now lies in the heavier weight divisions.
Yeah, thanks very much. Well, joining me to break down the end of an era for Anthony Mundine, boxing commentator Paul Upham. Paul, obviously a sensational result for Jeff Horn, but could anybody have imagined that it would end in that fashion?
I don't think anybody who was expecting Horn to win expected 96 seconds. It was a stunning exclamation point knockout, particularly after the way he lost to Terence Crawford. There were so many people down on Jeff Horn's performance, and now we look at the weight, it was all about him not being able to make the 66 kilos. He looked so much stronger last night, and Horn just ripped through him, the shots to the body, and even the knockout punch, it was sort of just an arm punch, and in the end, Mundine couldn't even get up off the canvas.
So what do we make of that? Considering that Chock's 43, is it just that the resistance was gone? I mean, obviously he's had those bad losses against Joshua Cloddy and Charles Hatley as well, but as you mentioned, it didn't actually look like it was a particularly clean punch, but for Anthony Mundine last night, he got old in that ring.
I think it was a case of Anthony Mundine can't physically take a punch anymore. I think he really punished his body to get down to 71 kilos, which is not his preferred weight. He needed to be fighting up at 72 plus. But unfortunately, to make the fight, they had to fight at 71. And Horn coming up just looked like bigger and stronger and just physically menacing. But it was I just think it's a combination of age and Horn looking so much better with the extra weight.
Probably what's gone a little bit unnoticed in all this is that Jeff came up 5 kilos to take this fight. Now, it's very rare that a fighter will jump up 2 weight divisions in one crack. But considering how good he looked at that weight, and as you mentioned earlier, he's wasted himself in the past to get down to 66 kilograms, do you think that we've now seen the end of Jeff as a welterweight? Glenn Rushton spoke about it last night and suggested, look, we'll look now at junior middleweight, we'll even look at middleweight. It seems to me now like Jeff should be focusing on the second stage of his career being at junior middle.
Definitely. That's the most important thing that I took out of last night's win, was that he can't fight at welterweight. You look at the Jeff Horn that went into the ring against Terence Crawford in Las Vegas, completely different physically. He just looked gaunt and drawn, and he looked so much stronger. Clearly at 71s, I think he was actually 74 kilos when he weighed in before the fight last night. He looked so much stronger, but he's got to fight at super welterweight. Super welterweight's going to suit him nicely, and with his work rate, he can be very competitive against those world champions. So he needs to get some fights, a couple of fights at super welterweight, get his top 10 ranking, and then hopefully with American promoters, he can be brought in as a B-side to these world champions. And for Horn, he's just got to now concentrate getting the ranking at top 10 and the sanctioning bodies, and then just see what doors open.
Now that we look back at the end of Anthony's career, what kind of fighter will he be remembered as? Will he be remembered as a guy that had all the talent and maybe wasted it through that middle part of his career fighting local Australian talent, and perhaps he should have tested himself overseas? Or does that take away from his achievements being a guy that succeeded at the top levels of 2 different sports?
Look, he's got so many positives about his career, but the key point you hit on there is that when he beat Danny Green, and he was the King of Australia then, that's when he needed to challenge the best in the world. He just couldn't make that next step. I think he was cautioned that it was better to stay in Australia, promote yourself, make a bit more money and retain control rather than taking that risk. And, you know, I think deep down, Anthony's admitted that was the one regret of his career, that he never got that big fight in America, even though he beat Shane Mosley, a faded Shane Mosley in Australia.
Well, look, as you mentioned, he had some nights against some fantastic Australian talent. It is the end of a phenomenal career for Anthony Mundine, but certainly the exciting rebirth of really what's going to be the second stage of Jeff Horn's career. Paul Upham, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. Great to be here.